Good night, everyone. Welcome to a special, very special edition, because we'll call it an episode of the Cornerblue. Just a breakdown of the match of the U23s versus Honduras. Oh man, that was some wild ride. A lot of good things, a lot of bad things, but I think the main thing to focus on is the team is still alive despite its 1-1 draw with its counterpart from Honduras. I'm Andres Rico, and I'm here with Hugo Alvarado. How you doing, Hugo?
Well, here we are, hopeful. There's still an opportunity. Definitely better than losing, right? So today we'll dissect the game with a guest, Richard Menjívar, who's gonna be talking about the game and his impressions. So, this is something fun that we're trying to do after a match. Talk about the game and our impressions, what we like, what we didn't like. So yeah, this is just a good space for us to kind of get together and express our opinions about the game.
Yeah, Richard is a friend of the house. We were able to chat with them earlier on last year when we started with this podcast, had a great chat. And considering that he was a core member of that memorable 2012 squad that eliminated the U.S., that almost made it into the Olympics in London, losing to none other than our wonderful and known foe, Honduras, 3-2. We thought it would be a great chance to be able to chat with them, get that insider perspective as someone that has played in a competition like that and someone that has lived it from the inside, on that pitch. So it was cool to get his perspective. So we're going to cut to it, everybody, and thanks for listening. And here's our chat with Richard Menjívar. Richard, what was your main sensation watching the game? Did you think they lived up to what we were hoping that they would do, or did they fall short? What was your analysis in general? What kind of what were I'll cut there. What were kind of the things that stood out to you in the match?
I think my initial reaction is that I think the tie is deserved. I don't think one team deserved it more than the other. The first half was a little slow, obviously, with the goal early in the second half. It kind of changed things up, kind of opened the game a little bit, but felt no team really had control of the game. It was just a little bit hesitation, more so on our part. I think Honduras felt a little bit more comfortable, but I think that was more based on the lineup that we had. We could touch a little bit more on it, but I think Enrico shouldn't have played up top. I think he does way better coming in deeper and receiving the ball and actually initiating the play. And then I think Marcus is the forward, and he does well linking up and holding the ball for us and letting us get forward. That kind of helped us once he came in.
Yeah, it definitely was like that one night and day kind of, side to the team in the first half and second half with Enrico dropping back. It was a nerve-wracking game. For a while, I thought we were out. And then with the goal, with Enrico's shot, getting that chanfle and heading towards the goal, it was reminiscent of Jaime Alas's goal when you guys tied the U.S. Were you thinking about that at all? Obviously you were on the pitch, so you didn't see that angle, but it was like a similar type play where it was like a Hail Mary shot, and then you just see it curving towards the goal. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that, actually. It's like a good comparison.
Yeah, and also part of the reason why we wanted to chat with you too is you were part of the Preolímpico squad that almost made it in 2012. There were even articles that came out for CONCACAF kind of comparing the different teams and mentioning Russo's role in that team.
Okay.
What does it take in a tournament like this to turn the page on turn the page and start focusing on the next match, because there's all these mixed emotions, right?
Yeah, obviously, after the first game versus Canada is a little bit disappointing. But tournaments like these, there's maybe 3, 4 days quick turnaround, and you got to focus on the next game. It's something that needs to happen quickly. I think during regular season league games, you kind of have like a whole week to prepare, but for tournaments like this, it's like you kind of just need to forget the last game. You know, Obviously not forget. You want to correct the things that you did poorly, and then continue to build on the things that you did well. But obviously, compared Canada and Honduras, are completely different teams, so you can't approach the game the same way. So mentally, players need to just focus. Maybe they could take a day or tonight just to kind of go over the game in their head to see what they did well, what they didn't do well, what they can fix, and then obviously apply to the next game, which needs to happen very quickly, and the recovery needs to be, done very quickly, and with short few days, and with so many players getting lots of minutes, it needs to be quick.
I mean, the game was kind of choppy at first. I think that we really struggle. I mean, the first half was ugly. I mean, that's probably the best way I can put it. We we struggle with creating like 3 or 4 passes. And definitely, I think that although Enrico has experience playing as a 9, because he played that position in Vitesse U21 for a while, U19, but his talent that we saw against Canada and that we saw today, I mean, he's a player who can hold the ball. We haven't seen anyone else in the team who can actually hold the ball and wait for more players to get into the attack and create more plays. Big difference in the second half when he was dropped, and he was able to play that role. I mean, I think our defenders, our center backs, I can appreciate that we're trying to play that style where we want to play from the back line, but obviously that takes a lot of work. It takes a certain type of player to be able to do that. I'm not sure we have those players at this time. Hopefully, our center backs can grow into that. Have a little bit more skill with the ball. Be able to also have more discernment in terms of when do I just blast the ball and when do I really need to try to play from the back line all the time. But I think it's very clear what Hugo Perez is trying to do, and I think when we do it, the more we practice and play that style, I see us playing a very attractive game. When we have the ball, up front, we have a few interesting players that that can create goal opportunities, and we saw it in the second half. I mean, after the first goal, I mean, Enrico had another very nice left foot shot that, I mean, it was a very nice shot. I thought the goalkeeper did really well at stopping that. And then we kind of played really well for another 5 minutes, and then we kind of went down again.
Yeah, I was worried when number 2 went in on the right side because he didn't have that great of a game against Canada. So I was a little worried that they were going to try and use that side. But he seemed to keep up at least time. Like, he didn't make the same mistakes. Obviously, he didn't have that much time, too many minutes. But yeah, I was a little worried about that flank, but they seemed to shut things down there. One thing I did notice was like the early jitters. Like, it took them at least like 10, 15 minutes to like get the ball even past the half line. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Did you guys notice anything with like the midfield? Because I know having Calvillo playing, in more of a midfield range, but it didn't seem like there were many connections, just the jitters and maybe not being able to make that pass and taking one too many touches. I don't know. What do you guys think about the first half?
Yeah, I think it's sort of history repeats itself, because I feel like even with our 23s, we kind of always started, a little bit slow. Just thinking back to the last time we played Honduras, we went we went down early as well, and we had to play catch up. But I think it comes a lot with preparation before the tournament. I mean, I honestly I didn't follow how long this team has prepared for this tournament. I would imagine that it's not very long, just because with my experience, dealing with like the 23s, and actually the 23s we had a pretty good preparation. But with like the national team, it's just like 1 or 2 weeks, and then people expect to get results. So a lot of that comes down to team chemistry and kind of knowing how each player kind of plays. So I think they were just trying to get the feel for the game, and I think that's something that like we struggle with early on. But once we get the flow of the game, I think that's when we start doing a lot better. But I think it's something that the lack of experience needs to improve, and it's something that we need to get better on. I think the players with the highest quality are able to do that early on. But yeah, touching more on the midfield, like I said earlier, I think the lineup was the wrong one, in my opinion. I think obviously Enrico should have dropped down a little bit more to help Calvillo build, because when he was up there, we were playing long balls, but I mean, a player his size, he's not going to win. I think with Marcus up top, I think that's his name. He's a little bit more player that can post people up and then lay the ball forward and then get the team up. But with him, it needed to be a different style of play. So, in my opinion, we could have played maybe with Diaz, Calvillo, and Dueñas in the midfielder, just because I feel like the holding mid, Portillo, I believe his name is, he doesn't really give us too much defensively and too much like building out of the back. He's just more like there. He might give the team a little bit of balance, but I think at this point, especially in this next game, we need to really go for it. I don't think the tie is going to do us any good. So I would put Diaz as a holding mid, because he's very, very aggressive defensively, and he's very good on the ball. He knows how to connect. He knows how to make the right plays. And yeah, I like him a lot. And I think having those three will complement each other. And I felt like they were all kind of in an island. And he was kind of doing his own thing. Perez kind of doing his own thing on one side. Calvillo trying to find a game, but he couldn't really connect with somebody. And I think you need 1, 2, 3 players at least to dictate the tempo. And it can't just be 1 or 2 players, especially at such a high level.
Yeah, I noticed that too, in the sense that players just seem really isolated. Like, it's rare where you would see, a give and go, or more than like 3 or 4 touches and then just try and attack. And it's almost like, yeah, like you said, it's almost like another Enrico was missing, another someone to hold the ball, like a couple more players to hold the ball, retain it, and set up the attack. Because you'd see Perez try and combine with Dueñas, but then boom, they'd get shut down, and then there's no one else nearby. There weren't any options. What I did like is what I noticed in the first game too, kind of the absorption in the middle, where it's not too often that we see El Salvador teams kind of disrupt plays. Like, that's what I've been liking, is that Honduras wasn't able to complete several plays. Granted, they got their chances and whatnot, but I like seeing that even though these guys are relatively short in comparison to the other players, but they do have a physicality, or at least they know how to position themselves and poke that ball away. It's just we need someone there to absorb it and then go on the attack.
Yeah, in the first half, at least the first 20, 25 minutes, I honestly, I don't even know who was playing holding mid, because it seems like there was a huge gap there. Huge gap. I like that we're playing a very attacking style. I think that's what we're going for. But I did see a lot of open spaces in the center mid position, the holding mid. And I don't know if that's, I think in part, this has always been my theory, and in part why I think we looked a little better today physically is that our players are not used to playing in fields like that, and fields that are fast, very nice. They get them wet before the game. They're I would say they're larger, they're wider probably than what they're used to playing in El Salvador. So it takes a lot more to cover spaces, a lot more, which I think why we had some players having some physical challenges in the first game, because when you're not used to playing at that tempo, then you have to do more, and then you end up cramping. And I think in today's game they already had a sense of how to play. They knew how to cover spaces a little better without having to force themselves too much. And I saw some of that today. I have to say I was very. I mean, we're going to talk about individual players a little later, and a lot of us are very excited about Dueñas, and I am very excited about Dueñas myself as well. But I was impressed by Lisandro Claros. I thought I had never seen him play, and we talked here about his story, how he was lived in the U.S., was scouted by a college, had a scholarship. On his way to college, somehow he had to go to a meeting with ICE, and he was deported. And he went to Nicaragua, and then he ended up playing pro. Now he's in the national team. I thought he looked solid. I mean, with the exception of maybe one mistake in the second half that where we almost got scored on.
Mm-hmm.
He was, I mean, I would say almost 100%. I mean, he couldn't pass him. And I was very impressed, especially, I think he's a center back, but they used him more as a right back today. But out of the three center backs, the big guys in the back, I was very, very pleased by his. He seemed to have like a sense of calmness, but always very well positioned to stop the play. So Lisandro was a very nice surprise for me, and Diaz was just, I mean, that guy is like actually Enrico just referred to him as a bulldog, and it kind of reminds me a little bit of you, Richard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of Richard and his playing style. I mean, he was the guy was all over the place, especially in the second half. I mean, he has a huge heart, and I really liked what he did today. But yeah, we improved a lot in the second half. But yes, I mean, lack of concentration. A lot of our players are not used to playing at that level. I think I always find it interesting that we talked about how great it is that most of our U23 players are in the first division already. And, like for most of the other teams, that's like a given always, right? I mean, U23 players should be playing in first division senior already. And a lot of our players are in senior first division, but they don't always play. And I think that's something that, I like to see more, even our U17s getting out there and playing in the US, Mexico, South America, and getting used to that, playing under those conditions, being exposed to those fields and getting a sense of what it takes to play. I think our players have the talent, but they don't have the right conditions in El Salvador to be able to fully develop and play those type of games. So in short tournaments like this one, like you were talking earlier, that there's no time, it's like you really have to either be a very, very smart player and adapt very quickly. And in 15 minutes, you already know how you need to touch the ball and how you need to cover spaces. It takes a lot more for our players because they don't have that school of play.
Yeah, I would agree. I think just sort of touching on infrastructure and like playing wise, the field for sure. Our players, aren't used to that. I mean, just even me playing in El Salvador, I could be testament to that. There's fields that are super small, that they run very slow. I mean, I think we mentioned it last chat that we had in our last interview, how Aguilas field was like super dry, super slow, and it's kind of hard to play in. And then you get introduced to fields like this to players of higher caliber that are already used to the ball zipping fast and stuff like that. And then it takes them a while to and I think that's something that we need to invest a lot more as a country, as a you know national team, because those type of things do make a difference. Just like simple things of knowing how to cover space, because the fields are so big that players are eager to put the work in, but they don't realize that there's certain angles that you need to approach the ball when you're closing it down, and then they leave a lot of space in behind them. It's a matter of like learning those things, but you're not going to learn them if you don't play in those fields all the time.
You always see kind of like this by default a progression in tournaments where it's almost like you see the team adjusting to that during the tournament, and it would just be so much better to hit the ground running where that transition doesn't have to occur, because it is completely counterproductive, especially when you see teams starting to get it rolling, but the game with Canada already happened. Like if they would have gotten a draw at least the first game, things would, the panorama would be different. But now it looks like, because I was looking at the rules and regulations for CONCACAF, and if they want to make it, they would have to win and then have a better goal differential than Canada or Honduras, whoever loses the next match. Yeah. So we'll see how that goes. So it goes goal differential, then goals scored, and then basically like head to head. So if it's Canada, we need to have a better
Honduras to lose.
Yeah. So we'll see what lies ahead. I mean, this team, I try always to keep my expectations pretty like realistic, because they had about almost 2 months to get to know each other, but then having Josh Perez and Enrico Leña showing up basically right at the beginning of the tournament, obviously that's not ideal because they had like 2 or 3 training sessions with the team, and you can see that, like you mentioned, that chemistry is still a process in the making. They're still getting to know each other, but I think it'll just be fun basically to see the next game. That's where I'm trying to go to. I'm not trying to put too much pressure on the team or get my expectations too high, just because of the context of everything. And then considering that Haiti tied Canada, I mean, that's a pretty good result in and of itself. So I have to admit, I haven't seen Haiti play at all. So have you guys seen them play at all? Did you catch any of their matches?
I haven't, no.
Yeah. So we'll see, because unfortunately for them, they had the whole issue with the COVID test where they weren't able to start with 11 players. And then mid-game, they got the okay, so they were able to at least get 11. And I mean, they had their 11 versus Canada and got a point. So
Yeah.
we'll see how it goes.
I think it would have probably been a different story against Honduras had they had their full squad and a goalkeeper, because they had to use a defender as a goalkeeper, because all of their goalkeepers didn't get their COVID test on time. Yeah, I don't know if they arrived late or they got the testing done late, so like 20 minutes 25 minutes into first half, they get the results and like they bring the rest of the players in, something like that. So I mean, that game doesn't really count, and I didn't see the match against Canada, but it's gonna be a tough match for us. But I think regardless of, I hope we make it, but regardless, I think we have to win that game. I think that this team has left us with so many positive things that I think it'll be unfortunate to end up with 1 point or 2 points. So even if we make 4 points and we don't make it through, at least we know that we put up a fight, which is kind of what we were expecting Hugo Perez had 2 months with the team, no friendly matches, competitive friendly matches. They played several games against first division teams, Salvador. But that was during, that was mostly when he was scouting players. A lot of players who played those games didn't really end up in the final squad either.
Oh, you mean Nicaragua, when they played Nicaragua? Is that what you mean?
They didn't even play Nicaragua. That was the U20.
Okay. Oh, okay. My bad.
Yeah, the U23 played Marte. They play Metapan.
FAS.
They play FAS. And I think that's it. So,
and all those games were in El Cusca?
No, different fields.
Oh, okay, yeah.
One of them was in El Cusca against Marte, I think.
Okay. Yeah, because when we did our preparation for the pre-Olympics, we had a friendly versus Puerto Rico.
That was your first game?
That was my first game.
Yeah.
And then we came to the U.S. and we played the University of Maryland.
Yeah.
And we played Honduras and Houston. But, I mean, obviously the fields are completely different. And then the game versus Honduras was actually a very good test for us. It was a big crowd. It was a great field. And then after that, we trained in that stadium for a while. I can't remember how long exactly, but I felt like the preparation was really good. And it gave us so much time together, that we kind of like picked up things and we improved the chemistry. And I mean, kind of touching to what you said, if they didn't keep most of those players, then they were probably just mostly trying to see what worked. But I think, if you want to really improve chemistry, you need to pick your squad as early as possible and then take them out and like force them to be around each other, force them to, have meals together and talk to each other and, get along, because that stuff does matter. And I think that's one of the things that it helped me personally kind of understand what players were like, and I could see them a lot more, frequently during practices and see, what things that they do well and how I can help them and how they can help me. And so I mean, just kind of touching, because I didn't know how the preparation was, but kind of listening to it now, I think it could have been done better.
It's definitely been an interesting ride, because the U23 has gone through 3 coaches, with Hugo Perez being the last one. Memo Rivera had them for was it Memo?
Oh, that's right.
First round.
I think last
first
year,
round
right?
was Memo. Yeah.
And then he got them through, I think, and then that's when
he got them through, and then Goches came in.
Yeah.
Then Goches did go to competitions in South America. I think they played Chile a couple matches, but I honestly, I wasn't really following that team very closely, but I think the players were very different squad than what we have now. Yeah. So the preparation hasn't been ideal, but like Hugo Perez said, I mean, he knew what he was getting into. And honestly, I had never seen Hugo Perez teams play. And from what I've seen so far, I do think he's the man for the job, especially if he can get into the U17s and the U20s and kind of start building that playing style, so that all teams kind of play the same, have the same philosophy. Because, in part, a big thing that I see in this team and that I like is that obviously there's a lot more work that needs to be done to get them to play the way Perez wants them to play. But it does seem like overall the team does want to be a very offensive team that proposes. Yes, we take our time sometimes to get out of the back line, but once we get to midfield, I do see that even playing with 3 on top, sometimes he's playing a 4-3-3. So so far I am I'm liking what I'm seeing.
Well, now, if we want, we can talk about just the attitude of the team in general, because one thing that is historic about Salvadoran teams is once the scoreline is adverse and El Salvador has to play catch up, it's almost like the psyche or just, the the mentality kind of crashes and burns. Players either get demoralized or really upset, and that obviously has a big impact in terms of trying to turn around a result, which is something that I'm pretty content with today's result, how they didn't give up. And granted, it was one of those Hail Marys and it ended up working. But we've kind of seen that with like the last couple of years, especially since the Los Cobos came back and the senior squad has gotten these like last minute results, albeit against really small teams, but they've avoided disasters in like last minute situations. The Oscar Seren goal against Peru also comes up last minute, and then this team getting that late goal and being able to hold on. What do you think about this trend, if we want to call it that, in terms of being able to bounce back, not to get, completely demoralized and losing a match, in the first half even?
I don't know if I talked about this after the first game, Andres, but one of the things that I can observe in this team, and that's part of why I'm thinking that Hugo Perez is the ideal person for this job, is that I'm starting to see a team that doesn't really crash psychologically when we are down. Even against Canada, we were down 2-0, and I thought the team continued playing the same way that they were playing at the beginning of the game, meaning, obviously you have to do more. You want to tie the match, but the team didn't seem to just give up, and I'm starting to see a little bit more of what we see with the United States. And that could very well be because, Hugo Perez comes from the United States School of Soccer, as a player, as a coach, youth coach. So I am starting to see some of that, and I actually I like that. I'm seeing that, despite being down in the score, the team doesn't lose focus. They don't get disorganized, which is, because one thing is to try to go and play to tie the match, right, or win the match, and do it in a disorganized way, and then you get scored and again, and then you're dead. And then another thing is what we saw today, where he switched Enrico to more of a number 10 position. Obviously Marquez played a big role as well, and we saw a team that defensively they stay pretty solid, whatever that might be, because it's a big mistake when we got scored on by the center backs. But I see a team that doesn't, they don't give up. They don't give up. They try as much as possible to stick to what the plan was, regardless of whether we're 0-0 or losing. We haven't seen them be down by 3 goals, and I hope we don't see that. But we were down 2-0 against Canada, and I thought the team did really well at trying to create opportunities, and we ended up creating some opportunities that unfortunately didn't end up in goals.
Yeah, I think I would agree with the most part. The team has responded well, especially after being down. And I think maybe with other teams being down maybe 1 or 2 goals, it kind of demoralizes the team. I think that I would agree that Hugo Perez. I had him as an assistant coach with the national team for games against Curaçao, I think the World Cup qualifiers, and he's definitely a very demanding coach. So I think it sort of reflects that on the team. And I think, we do have a good base and obviously good players. And obviously we just need to correct a few things. I'm hoping, this team can, work a little bit more together. Give them a shot to work together and develop them as a group, because I think we have a lot of good young players that eventually once the older players start to retire or whatever, that it could be a good base for the future full men's national team. And I think we just need to continue to work that. But I feel like it's difficult when for example, they've had 3 coaches in these qualifying rounds. I think it's a little bit difficult. You kind of need to let teams have like a process, because they're not national teams are not the same as club teams. They meet a few times a year. They train a week, if that, before any international game, and then you're expected to play and win games. But that's not the case. It's something that needs to come with like a process, and having the same players be called up and keeping the same coach. Obviously, if the coach is doing well. If the coach is not doing well, then obviously changes need to be made. But yeah, I think it's something looking forward, that if we continue to work these players, that we can have a decent competitive full men's national team.
Yeah, I haven't checked social media too much after this game. I did see that obviously there were a lot of fans that were upset with the team after the first match against Canada, and the typical like bashing of the foreign based players, saying, he's not up to the hype at all. This is just, you know, uh, just too much humo in terms of bringing certain players. Why do they bring them? We should keep just the domestic players. I think this result has started to open people's eyes, at least in terms of Enrico Dueñas, because the first match, either people were, lauding him for his performance, or other people were just like, nah, too much hype. But this game, he showed his versatility, especially in the second half. I think, well, obviously, you're the Enrico hype man. Would you like to break down the second half and things you saw from him? And obviously, you too, Richard, mentioned that you would prefer him, playing back in more of a 10 role. But I think this is a pretty important performance from him that might cement him, at least in the hearts and minds of fans, because I think the coaching staff now for this team and the Mayor are thinking about him as they've seen these 2 games, because this is like the first time they get to see him, within the context of competitions in the area, not, odd minutes in the Eredivisie or the cup, the domestic cup in Holland. But would you guys like to break down, what you guys saw from Enrico?
I've been trying my best to refrain from having my opinion on him. Obviously, I do talk to him directly, and I, share my thoughts with him. But yes, like you, Andres, I've seen the different comments on social media, and there seems to be this general idea amongst a certain sector of the fans where they think that every player should be a Messi, and not even Argentina produces Messis every year or every 10 years or every 20 years. So I think that we are so used to consuming European soccer, Spanish soccer, that we think that that's all that we have. I think we need to see where we stand first, and go from there. Yes, I do like Enrico as a 10. I don't blame Hugo Perez for trying him up front. That's been an area where the team has struggled during the 2 months that he's had the team. So I think that having Enrico play as a 9 was probably one of his ideas before Enrico came in, and he tried that today, and it didn't work this time. And then Enrico went back down, and we saw the big difference. In my humble opinion, to me, there's talent in El Salvador. So I don't want people to perceive that I think that only the foreign players are good. No, there's talent in El Salvador, but there's also a formation that goes to creating a player to, make him use his talents in the best way possible. What I've observed in the first match against Canada and the match today is that if we see what Enrico does with the ball, it's like everything has a very clear purpose. It's not like he would just try to play like in a crazy way, and I'm gonna try to take on all these players right now because I can do that. When he needs to play simple, he plays very simple. First touch, one touch. When he needs to hold the ball because there's nobody else to help him up front, he does a very good job at doing that as well. And the guy can shoot with both legs. I mean, we saw it against Canada. We saw it today. And if we, at least again, in my opinion, in that shot that almost went in with the left foot, it's not like he's just shooting, just like, fuck it, I'm gonna shoot, and I hope I aim correctly. It seems to me like the guy really knows what he's doing when he has the ball, when he does those things. And, in my opinion, that just shows the type of formation that he's had. Ajax is well known for creating really good players. So spending a couple years there and then, moving to Vitesse, I mean, he's learned a few things, and I think he's just going to continue developing as a player. So, yes, I do think he's some people might not like the word different because what does different means. I would say he's probably one of the players that we have with the highest soccer IQ, for lack of a better word. But also, I also saw, like I said, Lisandro Claros. I really like what he did today. Diaz. I mean, Diaz covers so much space that, I mean, that's important always to have a player like that. I think that Josh Pettis in today's game, I mean, I don't know if you guys saw this, but the guy was defending and attacking, and I mean, he also covered a lot of space today. So he put a lot of heart. He's obviously very skilled and a player who can make a big difference in the final third of the field. But today he gave it his all. I mean, he was defending, he was attacking, he was all over the place as well.
Pretty good in the 1v1 situations too, like shaking
Yes.
and baking.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I guess that would be my Enrico opinion as of now. And then I'm not going to have an opinion yet about whether he should go to the senior team or not, because I'd like to hear that from Richard.
Yeah, you beat me to the question. But yeah, Richard, how soon do you think, or do you see him getting called up for the senior squad? Or what do you think would be the best natural progression after this tournament?
I think, like you said, after today's performance, he sort of cemented himself on the team and as a figura of the team. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think he's going to get called up for the World Cup qualifiers now. But at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if he did. It's just I think the way De Los Cobos is, I feel like he has his squad, his players. But I mean, who knows? But in my opinion, I think he's ready. I think he's impressed. He's impressed me. I think he's a good player. I do think he lacks a little bit of experience and just but he's a young player though. There's like certain things that he does really well, and there's things that I think he could do a little bit better. But that's just me nitpicking, because I know he could do better. If it was another player,
could you elaborate a little bit just to add some balance?
Sure. So, for example, there's plays where I see that he needs to dribble, like Hugo said. He needs to. He kind of wants the team to give him options, and it feels like he's trying to find solutions to problems, but he doesn't really need help. But at the same time, I feel like you, as a leader, you kind of need to put that on players. Like if they're not showing up, give them the responsibility. And the way you do that is like you try to connect more and you try to let players feel comfortable, get more touches in. But I feel like he doesn't see things happening right away. So he gets a little anxious and tries to like kind of create something on his own. Which is awesome because we definitely need players like that, even on the full men's national team. I feel like, everyone has a role, and for a player like him, he needs to make things happen. Like for example, today he did lose a few balls, but it all comes with experience. Like sometimes he held the ball just a tiny bit too long, or he could have taken, one less touch. But I think that was also the position he was playing. And that was most of the balls that he lost was when he was playing forward and he was completely by himself. Once he dropped in as a 10, I feel like he kind of started to take over the game. And like I had mentioned earlier, if he had another player kind of helping him create and help him, build the game, build out of the back, build the attack, then, we would have looked a lot better. But I think he has a big future. Obviously, he's in the Netherlands for a reason, but with the national team, I think he could be a key player going forward.
Yeah, I've seen that he's already been compared to El Pájaro Hueso, or people starting to think, oh, could he be the natural or final replacement that we've all been waiting for? Probably the biggest 10 in El Salvador's history is El Pájaro Hueso. So that it's interesting to see kind of the night and day reaction, where people were really harsh on him in the debut, and now he seemed to finally broken through and established himself. And we'll see what comes moving forward. I mean, in terms of the national team, we all saw the news last week where basically the middle core of the senior squad has been kind of shaken up in terms of the good old story of negotiating compensation and whatnot. I know you've gone through that. You've mentioned some of the shortcomings that teams have had to deal with the federation. And we mentioned last time that maybe that might, it will force some changes, and already has, at least for the next two fixtures. And moving forward, we'll see what happens there too. De Los Cobos, at least with his first stint, always did his, big casting of bringing in random players, or at least that's what I felt or remember from that time. He hasn't done that as much this time, other than like with the microciclo. So hopefully, these matches that obviously are important against weaker rivals, he's able to tweak things or kind of change things around, because for the most part, just the style has been really defensive. Fans haven't been happy with it. And then, there have been some difficult results against the island teams. So hopefully, sooner than later, he gets called up and, we can get a lock on him. Because would he be able to still be eligible for the Netherlands in case he doesn't get that call up from the senior squad?
Yeah, another point to mention about Enrico is that he's on the younger side of the U23s. He's 20. So he's actually a U20 player. He was going to get called up for the U20, and then the U20 was canceled. So, that's one thing to consider, that he is, most of the team is 22, 23, might be a couple 21s, but he's 20. And then Alguera, obviously 17, one of our goalkeepers, the youngest in the tournament. But yes, I mean, in Europe right now, their youth is U24. So I guess because of the pandemic. So yes, definitely there's, FIFA has basically made the rules very flexible now to change associations. I think it's been very important that, from what I hear from Enrico, he's been welcomed in the national team. The players are treating him well, and that's important to make you feel part of the group. Especially when when you grow up in a country where there's no other Hispanics, or at least definitely maybe there's like 10 Salvadorians. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but there's definitely not a lot of Salvadorians in his town.
Yeah.
So to go from that to playing for a national team where he's not able to fully communicate with all the players, that's a big challenge. But I think he's shown a lot of maturity for being a 20-year-old, and we see some of that on the pitch. I hope that I don't like saying yes, he should be called up to the senior squad, but I don't see. I'm also of the opinion of why not, because that's the way. If we want to have that next potential superstar, I don't know. I mean, just using that word. If you call him up, give him that experience of what it's like, even to be on the bench, and maybe play 10 minutes at El Cusca. That's going to be a great experience that is going to help you grow more and basically start from there and have that exposure. Because right now, another strange thing is that we're watching games without fans, and the fans are a big part of the game. And I think it can go. I mean, obviously, it can go either way, right? Some players can get very nervous; they can feel the pressure, but also there's a lot of players who do even better under those conditions. So, I think that given that we don't currently have a player of his style in the national team, in the senior squad, I mean, honestly, I don't think. I mean, after Cheo Quintanilla, we haven't had a 10 who can do a lot of the things that I've seen some things that Enrico can do that are very similar to what Cheo used to do. I don't see why not. I don't see it as a bad idea, but then again, he has to travel all the way from the Netherlands to be on the bench. I don't necessarily, proposing that, but I think it can be a first step. And why not? Perhaps he comes in and he surprises everyone in the senior squad. That's completely possible. And it could also be because, like you mentioned, Richard, that sometimes he would do a little, maybe an extra thing with the ball, but I also see it as sometimes he is playing at a different tempo. He's like 2 steps ahead of the rest of his teammates. And I think with the senior team, he might have other players who have more of that experience and can actually help him shine even more.
Yeah, that's true. That makes sense. Yeah, for sure.
Did your cat almost knock over the camera or something? Oh, I just saw a cat.
Yeah.
That's funny. So, Richard, what telecast did you watch? Did you watch it in English on Fox Sports 1, or did you watch it on TUDN?
TUDN.
Nice. Because I know, like, I don't have TUDN, so I've been forced to watch it in English. It's not my my preference.
Yeah.
But I know that they've had a lot of material to talk about, especially with Hugo Perez. Like, they've been hyping him a lot and remembering, obviously, because of his career and his connection with U.S. soccer, even as a coach. So you haven't watched We Nada at all? Because I know they do like a pregame show or something like that. And I remember back in the day when you guys were doing the Olympic qualifiers, that he was mentioning that he coached you and he knew of your quality. Are you still in touch with them, or how's your relationship with them?
Yeah, every now and then I'll talk to him. When he was coaching in Las Vegas, he was actually trying to sign me. This was in 2019, and it just didn't work out. And then he ended up going to a team in New York, New Amsterdam, CFC or something like that, in the NISA. And he actually contacted me and see if I wanted to play, and I told him, yeah, this was last year. during the pandemic. But I guess the owner didn't want any players outside of New York, so he ended up, not staying there. But I mean, every now and then, yeah, we'll talk. Did we lose Hugo?
I think his cat attacked him or something.
But yeah, I mean, I talk to him every now and then. Yeah.
And in terms of any updates on possibilities looming, or any ETAs on your return to action, or how have you been handling, yourself as of recent?
Yeah, I mean, I've been training with a team that I won't mention just yet, because we're actually starting negotiations, and hopefully I'll be able to sign soon. But yeah, I've been training. I trained with them for a while now, but I had stopped. I don't know if you know the story, but I was in the hospital with my son for the longest. So I stopped for those 51 days, basically, just to be in the hospital with him. And then now that my son's home now, I'm able to pick up training, and continue to get back into shape. So obviously they're still impressed, and hopefully we can come to an agreement soon, and I can get back into playing. So
That sounds great, man. Yeah, I appreciate your candor and being open about a situation like that, because obviously that's not an easy one. And just happy for you that things are starting to settle down in terms of that. They're getting to enjoy them at home, and yeah, that's great news, man. Hopefully things work out with the team, and then we see you back on the pitch sometime soon.
yeah,
That's
appreciate
great
it.
news, man. You've been working and being really patient, so I bet that'll
Yeah,
be a huge relief
Yeah.
once that's concrete.
yeah. It's been a while since I've played like an official game, so it feels good to be back, getting into it, and playing. One of the things, one of my goals is to have my son watch me play, so I have a lot of motivation now. So
That's great, man. That's
Nice.
great.
yeah.
Well,
So wait, so you just said that you're very close to signing with beep, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Thanks. You heard it here first.
Yeah.
Corner Blue.
well, that's great news, man. Do you have an idea by when things might have settled, or things will be concrete?
Not really, because I mean, there's been teams that I've finished negotiations within a few days, and then there's times where it's taken like weeks,
Mhm.
and yeah, sometimes like even like a month. So, I mean, obviously they know me, and I've been training with them for a while, but I think it's my best guess would be maybe within like a week, because season will start soon. So I would imagine they kind of want to get their players in the roster pretty quickly.
Nice, nice. We'll keep
Yeah.
our eyes open for any announcements, because yeah, that's exciting, man. Like, you deserve it wherever you go. We know you've been busting your ass, and we appreciate the posts that you put of your training sessions and whatnot. So again, we're all rooting for you, man.
Appreciate that. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we should wrap up, because it's been a little over an hour, I think, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. We don't want to take any more time, because how often are the intervals for waking up for you?
Oh, every 3 hours.
Oof.
Well,
Oof.
but we switch off with my wife though. But
Okay.
normally I take the 3 a.m. shift. But now that I've been going to train, she'll take the 3 a.m. and then I'll take the 6 a.m. To feed him, and then usually I just get ready and then head off to practice.
Nice. That's dedication right there.
Yeah.
Fortunately, my kid sleeps 7 to 8 hours per night, so I'm blessed in terms of
Okay.
that. She knocks out, so
Nice.
I'm plenty rested. But we want to thank you again for taking the time and chatting with us. It was last minute, and obviously we appreciate you, chiming in, giving your analysis. Obviously, you have the insider perspective, especially when it comes to this tournament. And obviously, watching this tournament brings back memories of that 2012 squad. So it's been cool breaking things down. I think, I mean, if you would be down, if they progress in the tournament, would you be down to break
Oh,
things,
yeah,
talk
for
things
sure.
out? Great. So yeah, so we'll be in touch. in the case that they make it to the next round, because I think if they don't, it'll just be like a Debbie Downer and like a funeral. So in the hopes that they make it to the match either against the US or Mexico, it'd be great to be able to chat it up with you again. Ul, anything you'd like to say?
No, thank you, Richard, for it's fun, just kind of dissecting the game and sharing our observations and our hopes for the national team. So congratulations on your upcoming contract with Beep. And looking forward to seeing you play again, and hopefully you get back on the national team. I mean,
it's my goal. Yeah,
our defensive mids decided not to play because they're not getting enough money. So hey,
I know. I feel like if I was playing, the past few months, maybe this would have been my shot back in. But since I haven't played in a while, gotta wait a little bit. But yeah, no worries. But thanks for having me. This is lots of fun. I always enjoy, being able to talk about soccer, just in general, especially with you guys. So, anytime you want to have me on, just let me know.
For sure, man. All right. Well, get some sleep because you got 8 hours or 7.5 till your, you said the 6 a.m. shift?
Yeah, 6 a.m. Yeah, but he said 12, so I'll probably be up for a little bit.
All right, man. Sounds good. Yeah. Take it easy, and we'll be talking soon then.
All right. Thanks for having me, guys. Take care.
All right, so that's it, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We are so glad to see Richard, getting back on track, having his baby healthy at home, and looking forward to who he's gonna be playing with very soon. So always great to hang out with Richard and get his perspectives on the game, our national team. So that's it for this episode. We are, hoping to do another one after the next game against Haiti, and we'll see how our spirits are after the result. And but on Thursday we have doubleheader. We have the U23 playing Haiti at 4:30 p.m. Pacific time, and then we have the senior team playing the first game for the World Cup qualifiers for the octagonal. Playing Granada, right? At 6:30 p.m.
I think I thought they're playing at home.
They are playing at home, yes, against Granada.
Yeah, they're playing at home. Okay.
Yes. So 4:30 p.m. Pacific time, Azulita, 6:30 p.m. the senior team. Looking forward to 2 wins that game. Hopefully the U23 has like a massive win, like a 3-0, 4-0, so we can have more opportunities to go through the next round. And also, the senior team, we need to win.
We need to get the ball rolling on this next round. Obviously, it's just been a huge break. And then on top of that, there seems to be some issues behind the scenes that have been put forth into the public domain, if you want to get wordy with it. So we'll see if things settle down with the senior squad. They handle business. But I think my main goal for that day is to see La Azulita through. I mean, obviously, the senior squad is dear to our hearts. Obviously, we want to see them move through to the next round. This is a step towards that. But I feel like the main event of the evening will be to see what happens to La Azulita and Hugo Perez's team. So without further ado, we're going to close out this episode. It's late. I'm going to chop this up and try and throw it up on the internets as soon as possible so you can digest it before the next match on Thursday. But I appreciate you tuning in, and the likes, the subscribes. Obviously, keep telling your friends, family about us. We like growing this thing organically, even if it includes spamming people on Twitter. So if I spammed you on Twitter and you followed, thank you so much. It was just done because you have probably had a little Salvadoran flag or Salvi involved in your handle, or, you just find other spots that fans like to follow and whatnot. So thank you so much once again, and we'll be talking soon on Thursday.